Come out, Thanos! I know you're hiding in there!
Thanos was but a minor nuisance compared to me, child. I am the MCU's greatest enemy.
Galactus? Mephisto? The one below all?
No.
Corporate expectations, haha!
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's only loosely been about major motion pictures ever since the global pandemic thrust Trolls World Tour into a default Oscar nod. But I gotta say, there is some good news to all of this downtime. All the hours that I used to spend in theaters every week looking for juicy, theorizable details can now be spent combing over the enormous backlog of comic books that have been piling up over the last few years. As loyal fans know, some of my best predictions have come from comic book plot lines. Marvel likes to test out ideas for the MCU in their comics first, and in Secret Empire #7, Natasha makes the ultimate sacrifice, but what's important here is that Black Widow has shown that she's willing to sacrifice herself to stop the worst possible timelines from playing out. But today, I'm going deeper. Way deeper. Thanks to a shakeup in the Marvel leadership, Kevin Feige, formerly the head Marvel movie guy, is now just the head Marvel guy, i.e. he is now the creative director in charge of everything that Marvel legally controls. That ranges from the movies, of course, but also the TV shows, and also now the comic books. With unprecedented power comes unprecedented responsibility. Feige is taking control of Marvel at its peak, and with the most ambitious crossover event in history already behind him, a lot of fans are wondering where it all goes next. Well, loyal theorists, I'm here today to posit that Feige is planning something absolutely massive going forward. A crossover event to make Endgame and Into the Spider-Verse seem like small potatoes. Just like the Infinity War saga was ultimately building to a climactic battle against Thanos, I'm now convinced that Kevin Feige is building this next story arc into a battle that'll merge the Marvel multiverse. First, it needs to be established that Marvel has something of a loosely connected multiverse going. There's a long history of numbering universes in Marvel, especially in the comics, with the universe numbered 616 being the primary Marvel universe. Say what you will about DC's movies, but at the very least they have the common decency to start with Universe 1. Also, just to make matters even more confusing, rather than calling it Universe 616, as would make total sense, it almost always is designated by Earth numbers, meaning that even if you're talking about out-in-space activities, you're still referring to the whole thing as the Earth 616 continuity. But even more confusingly, Earth 616 is part of a multiverse that has been reborn multiple times. In total, there have been 7 multiverse renewals during the entire history of the Marvel multiverse, where an old multiverse completely dies out only to be replaced by a new one. In other words, Marvel comics exist in a multiverse. So Earth 616 is the main timeline, but there are plenty of other fun little offshoots. Plenty of others. Earth 90214 is Marvel Noir, where Daredevil, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and the X-Men get dropped into the 1920s for some good old-fashioned timey-wimey antics. Earth 101001 is the universal ID for the Marvel anime. Yeah, the Marvel anime. Earth 92131 is where the 90s animated shows of both X-Men and Spider-Man come in. And Earth 65 is the universal ID for Spider-Gwen. It's the universe where Gwen Stacy gets bitten by the radioactive spider instead of Peter Parker and goes on to become Spider-Woman, while Peter Parker turns himself into the Lizard in an attempt to be special like her. And yes, this is the same Gwen Stacy who gets pulled through a portal to be a part of Into the Spider-Verse, which itself takes place in Earth 1610. And now you can see, first off, how confusing this gets, but also how these things are starting to come together. Now, in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe A to Z, the MCU was given the designation of 199999, apparently named after the year Kevin Feige started producing the X-Men movie, plus just some more nines in there to sound cool. However, with Avengers Endgame, the MCU is now canonically not taking place in a single universe anymore. As discussed by Hulk and the Ancient One,
the Infinity Stones create what you experience as the flow of time. Remove one of the stones, and that flow splits. Now, this may benefit your reality, but my new one, not so much.
Wait, hold on here, quick sidebar. In the movie, Thanos admits to destroying the Infinity Stones. The things that we just heard create the flow of time? Talk about your lines that no one remembered that they had included in the script. Anyway, as that scene proves, at the very least, we've witnessed multiple different realities in the MCU on the big screen. That's how we get ourselves a dead Loki in the main MCU, but a very much alive Loki in the upcoming Loki solo series on Disney+. Age Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is also canonized to be taking place in the MCU, and it's been churning out different timelines at an alarming pace. In Season 5, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are sent through a time monolith, which is like a gooey poor man's time stone, to a reality in which Earth was destroyed at the same time as Thanos' attack by a completely unrelated event involving the villain Graviton, resulting in the near extinction of all humanity. So they go back in time with the monolith, stopping him and creating a second major MCU-related timeline. Since then, they've been going gung-ho with time travel because I can't believe I'm even gonna try to explain this plot, but here we go. An alien civilization of super-intelligent computers lose their homeworld, so they kidnap the S.H.I.E.L.D. scientists they believe solve time travel and ask them to build a new time travel machine so that they can save their home planet in the past. They somehow manage to build it, which the aliens then use to go back in time to stop S.H.I.E.L.D. from being made so they can invade Earth more easily, which actually works. But the S.H.I.E.L.D. scientists manage to take all the main characters back to a good timeline, sacrificing the one in which Season 7 takes place. Season 7 is hilarious, by the way, and I'm at least 60% sure that the writers are in on the joke. In any case, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has taken place in no fewer than 3 distinct timelines, again, connected canonically via the MCU. So the MCU is, in and of itself, a multiverse.
You're saying there's a multiverse?
Also, while I'm thinking about it, who needs a time stone, or for that matter, who needs to beg Tony Stark to invent time travel when your S.H.I.E.L.D. pals already had themselves a time machine? Just saying, Captain America, if you had just paid a bit more attention to the little guys in your canonically related TV spin-off series, you would have saved yourself a lot of trouble. Okay, so why am I talking about all this? Well, it seems that the next big step for the MCU will be combining all the different multiverses into one. From the movies, of course, but also from the TV shows and also from the comics. In 2015, Marvel destroyed the comics multiverse in their second Secret Wars event. Long story short, this plotline had Earths from different universes colliding, destroying their entire universe in the process. In an unusual turn of events, the heroes ultimately failed to save the multiverse. Pieces of different universes got smashed together in an area beyond time and space called Battle World, before things were eventually reset into the 8th and current iteration. But here's the thing, Marvel used this massive event not only to reset, but to massively rework the Marvel continuity. They took the chance to end the Ultimate line of comics, but moved popular characters like Miles Morales over into the main 616 continuity. The event helped clean up Marvel history while not totally rewriting all of the characters. The idea was that new readers wouldn't have to know the entire history of the Marvel universe just to get into a new book, but longtime readers didn't have to abandon everything that they knew and loved about their all-time favorites. And there's certainly some hints that the MCU is setting up the pieces now for a multiverse-ending event of its own. Remember, Marvel, through the next few phases, needs to find a way to top Endgame, the most ambitious crossover in history, where all the greatest heroes in the universe collide. So how do you do that? By making all the greatest heroes in the multiverse collide. Or, to quote Anthony Russo talking about the next Avengers, quote, "It would be the biggest movie you could possibly imagine." So that's what really excites us about the story. The ambition of it is even bigger than the ambition of the Infinity Saga. And before I completely write that off as insane, remember, Into the Spider-Verse introduced the world to the idea of not just a multiversal superhero movie, but a multiverse where characters could operate by wildly different rules. And based on its box office and critical success, you can bet Marvel is looking to crib some notes from that movie. The latest rumors burning up the internet all seem to indicate that Tobey Maguire from the 2000s era Spider-Man trilogy and Andrew Garfield of the Amazing Spider-Man movies are both going to appear as alternate universe Spideys in the next MCU Spider-Man outing. These casting decisions are still definitely rumors, but when asked directly about them, they simply stated that, quote, "Those rumored castings were not confirmed." Makes it sound a lot less like it's not happening and more like they're still in contract negotiations. In addition, you have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. outright creating teams of secret warriors preparing for some secret war of their own.
Some battles need to be fought with secret warriors.
I understand the need for these secret warriors.
But it's the Thor comics that seem to most hint at what's coming. In both of the latest 2 Thor stories, Thor has been worried about the end of his universe. In the comic King Thor, a future Thor from Earth 11412 worries about the coming All Black, which is the end of his universe in the form of Gore the God Butcher and his Necro Sword. To quote from that series, "But now the universe is a trembling invalid, collapsing in upon itself and wheezing its last. Soon there will only be entropy, an inert sea of all-consuming nothingness. These are but life's final twitches. Behold the dying of the light." What's more, the newest mainline Thor comics have focused focused around a similar malicious force, the Black Winter. The Star Plague, the Great Black Winter, it is coming. Yeah? Is winter coming for you, Thor? Don't worry, if history proves true, it's not as bad as they make it out to be. Or is it? You see, the Black Winter is the maximum escalation of bad guy. As the Silver Surfer puts it, quote, "The Black Winter killed the universe before ours, Thor. As Galactus devours worlds, the winter comes for realities." Just to showcase exactly how much of a bad guy the Black Winter really is, they showed him literally destroying the DC universe, which, gotta admit, is just some top-tier trolling. It's revealed that the Black Winter has destroyed the entire multiverse before, causing the end of the 6th incarnation of the universe. He is such a bad dude that even Galactus, who was the sole survivor of the last multiverse, is afraid of him. Galactus claims that to him, the Black Winter looks like Thor. And wouldn't you know it, but in the King Thor comic, we learn that Thor might actually be the one to cause the end of the universe. As they say there, all hail Thor, the End Father. Even the Black Winter himself calls Thor the End God. But to me, one of the most interesting bits from the comics is this line, also from that recently released King Thor. As the universe prepares for collapse, do you remember how this whole saga began? Jane Foster, the Mangog, the War of the Realms, the Cosmic God cop cases. Jane Foster, for those who don't remember, is Natalie Portman's character from the first 2 Thor movies and ever so briefly in Endgame. When Phase 4 was announced at last year's Comic-Con, Natalie Portman took the stage and triumphantly hoisted Mjolnir above her head, clearly signaling the coming of Jane Foster's Thor in the upcoming Thor Love and Thunder. So that's one pretty solidly off that checklist. The War of the Realms also kinda happened in the MCU during the events of Thor 2, I bet you forgot about this one. The War of the Realms is actually a comic plot that came in the immediate aftermath of Thor 2, but dealt with similar issues as that movie, such as Malekith's attempt to destroy everything. So that is 2 off of that bucket list before the end of the universe. The Cosmic God cop cases haven't happened yet, but it's likely the Loki series will actually deal with these. You see, God cops are exactly what it sounds like. They are a police force for gods. Let's not get much deeper than that. Which honestly sounds like the sort of thing that would fit really well in a show about a renegade god, Loki, on the loose messing with moments throughout history, which is exactly how that Disney Plus Loki series is being described. And then finally there's Mangog, a villain that's not really worth explaining in detail here, but was trapped beneath Asgard in the comics, so he's probably still safely contained under the... So there's a good chance that Mangog is out there on the loose and that we'll be seeing him soon, giving us a 4 for 4 on the checklist before the end of days comes to the Marvel multiverse. The long and short of it all is this: the comics are already setting up for another multiversal end. They've introduced Black Winter, a threat that's destroyed the multiverse before, and it's starting to threaten Marvel's biggest heroes. On its own, this would normally be the start of a huge comic crossover event, but given the recent events at Marvel, I think it's actually setting up for something even bigger. I know I'm not comic book theory, but I think there's a lot of hints that Kevin Feige wants us to see, or ideas that he wants to test out before they hit the big screen. In his short tenure as CCO, he's already had Thor tackle the end of the universe multiple times in the comics. And consider this, Marvel Studios is acting more like a comics company today than it ever has. They have movies, they have Disney Plus spin-offs, they have animated spin-offs. Heck, Thor even crossed over into FORTNITE in a canonical tie-in. And no, that is not just a theory. According to Marvel Comics editor Mark Basso, quote, "We had a lot of great creative discussions between Marvel and Epic Games about where our storylines would cross over naturally, and seeing how prime a target the FORTNITE island would be for Galactus, who Donny Cates has already been exploring in his Thor series, set the whole thing in motion." Just like with the comics, some characters, some storylines will stick around and some won't, but after the next few phases, you'll need a way to bring it all back together, to keep the characters that work, to lose the ones that don't, all into one timeline that the average moviegoer can still watch and appreciate. And that is why I think a multiversal threat and ultimate collapse is on the horizon, just like Thanos was all throughout the Infinity Saga. Not this phase, not the next, but just like with Thanos, this will be the next big arc, collapsing the universes, and it all begins with Thor. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.